Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for this presentation today. I see everybody is getting on, so we just want to make sure people are getting on. Thank you for receiving our invitation to join this event today. And thank you also for attending this Avoiding Coronavirus Scams. So my name is Larry Almo.
And my name is Janet. Good morning, everyone.
And we are from Aljoya, Mercer Island. And we just like to bring these great seminars with you and for you. And I'd love to have you on as well. I'm going to turn it over to Anne. And then Anne is going to tell you how it's going to work today. So we want to show you how that works. And then we're going to do a formal introduction and go from there. So Anne, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting us. We just want to remind you that you will have access to the chat box today. We will be taking questions at the end, and we would love to include as many of your questions as possible. So if you're using a tablet or a smartphone, most often as not, you will find the chat box hidden away behind this ellipsis with 3 little dots there. And behind that, when you click on it, you will find chat. Or if you're on a laptop or a computer, most likely as not, you'll see chat at the bottom of your screen. Just click on that and enter your question or comment. Comments also are welcome between folks on the presentation. So again, thank you and welcome to our presentation. So my name is Anne O'Callahan. I've been a member of AARP for 12 years and a volunteer for the last 16 months. I'll mainly be in the background today, providing you with technical slide support. And I am joined by Roger, who is also going to be doing support today. Larry, is there anything else that you'd like to interject before we get started?
Of course I would. 2 things. One is our seminar is all year long. We bring in lots of great speakers, and we've had the pleasure of working with Lee and Jack for many years here at Aljoya, Mercer Island, because we feel that they bring a lot to our listeners in how to avoid any kind of scam of some sort. And they've been doing it for a long time, but it's all about our listeners to save them from being scammed. I remember when Lee and Jack came into the community, and we hope to welcome them back again in the future. But I was hearing one story where a lady had to save her grandchild, and it cost her $300,000 to save her grandchild, so to speak. And that was hard-earned money by her that avoided her from living a good life in the future because of these scams. So these 2 lovely people, Lee and Jack, are devoted people to take care of us, to make sure that to give us all the opportunity to not to just hang up the phone or whatever, but they'll go through all of that. And just to tell you a little bit about Aljoya, we are the host today, and we're just living in a beautiful retirement community, 62 and older, 114 apartments, well-appointed apartments with full kitchens and air conditioning and spacious high ceilings and a beautiful location on Mercer Island. At any point, and we know a lot of our listeners that are on today, to come in and take a tour and look at our community and see us again, we welcome you for that. And without further ado, we'd like to turn it over to Lee and Jack right now on behalf of Janet and myself. Go ahead, listen, take notes, and they've given us some handouts that they'll talk about that we can send to you at the very end. Janet and I will send those out to you to have some copies of what they're talking about. So Lee and Jack, please take over, and thank you all for joining today.
Okay, before we start, are there any other housekeeping things that need to be done, Anne and Roger? Okay, well, okay. We are really very pleased to be here with you. As Larry said, we have addressed people and we have visited Aljoya a number of times over the recent years, and it has always been our pleasure to do so. And it is also very important to us that we get our message out about how pervasive scams are. And we have a lot to share with you today. But as we go through these this information with you today about avoiding coronavirus scams, we know that you will hear the similarities with all scams. And basically, the scam operators work with the same tools and the same concepts. The product may be different. And they focus on what is in the news because that's what triggers a reaction in the audience. So anyone can be a target. Anyone can be a target. And basically it's because the scam artist is trying to push your emotional buttons. It doesn't have a lot to do with intelligence. It doesn't have a lot to do with education, but it's pushing the buttons. And in Larry's example of that grandparent scam, it was pushing an emotional button, tugging at the heartstrings because that woman wanted to protect her grandson. So with that in mind, let's take a look at what our agenda is today. And because we're focusing on the COVID issues, we're definitely going to be talking about the health and testing scams. Now, financial scams, I don't know about your screen, but mine shows 3 vertical versions of it. Horizontal versions, excuse me, but I'll keep talking. In terms of the financial issues, during this pandemic, there has been a tremendous financial downturn, and that has put millions of people into desperate financial straits. And because of that, you are more vulnerable. If something sounds like it's going to be an opportunity to gain finances, we tend to be weakened. You know, our logic, our defenses tend to weaken, and we're willing to listen to that. And more people are vulnerable as a result of the financial conditions today. And tied with that is scarcity. Remember a year and a half ago when there were lines waiting to buy toilet paper and paper towels? Well, some of those scarcity issues are coming back again now. So you can count on the scam artists trying to take advantage of that to try to get you to buy their products. So they're going to try to separate you from your money. We're also going to talk about charity scams, stuck at home scams. We have been stuck at home for a year and a half. That means it's not hard for the scam artists to find us. And we'll talk about some of those issues. And then we'll talk about some other scams with a COVID twist. So let's go to the next screen, please. And we're going to talk about the COVID-related scams. As I mentioned earlier, excuse me, supplies have dwindled for a number of reasons. And because it is hard to come by, or because the prices have gone up, we tend to be more vulnerable if we see a good offer. But you need to be wary of all of the fraud that comes about with that. Now, let me give you some statistics here. As of September 8th, so that's just a couple of weeks ago, there were nearly 600,000 reports to the Federal Trade Commission on scam-related items. 600,000 reports. And that's an increase of 45% just in the last year. So you see how the scam artists are working. And those scams have come about either because the goods were not delivered, or it was shoddy, it wasn't what it was promised, or the return or whatever warranties were worthless. So people spent their money, the money was gone, and they then reported it in an attempt to get it back. So of those 600,000 reports. What are we talking about in terms of money? Well, the total loss was over $550 million. Let me say that again. $550 million was lost. And the median loss was $382 per case. But for Washingtonians, for those of us living in our state, it was $438. So the scam artists are working Washington and they're succeeding. And we want to make you aware of how they do it so you can protect yourself. You need to be suspicious of anybody calling you, texting you, emailing you, going door to door. Anyone who is making an offer, check it out. And if it has to do with medical products, talk with a healthcare provider before you invest in it, because there's a good chance that it's a scam. Now, let me back up for just a second. When I said be suspicious of anybody calling, texting, emailing, any way they can communicate. But I want you to know that the way our brains work, we tend to respond to a text. And that's what the scammers know. People, if it comes on a text, it does not make it righteous. Check it out. Okay, so now let's get back to the items here on the chart. And there have been scams about false cures, home testing kits. Now, when we first started doing this a year and a half ago, most of those were scams. Now there are home testing kits, but from every professional that I have spoken with, I've been told, do not rely on the home testing kits. And I know of one personal friend who had one and took a test, and she couldn't even read the results. So it was money wasted on that. Now, let's talk about contact tracing. Contact tracing is a very important tool that medical firms, medical agencies are using. Once someone has been identified as positive for COVID, we want to contact everyone that person was in contact with so that we can contain it and not have it spread. So if you're seeing on the chart, there is a diagram, and I'm not sure that everybody's seeing what I'm seeing, so I will try to describe it to you. That let's assume for a minute that you have been with someone and you've been in close proximity with them for more than 10 minutes. And the next day, that person, let's say it's John Smith, and John Smith is sick, and he goes to the doctor and he's tested and he tests positive for COVID. First of all, they will test him thoroughly with that test. The next thing they're going to do is ask John, who have you been with in recent days? And John will then give these other names. And if you are one of them, you will then be contacted by a government agency that says you have been in contact with someone who is positive. You now need to be tested, but you also need to isolate because you potentially are a carrier. Now, when these contact agencies call you, they are likely to ask you for your date of birth, for your ethnicity, and for your address. They will not ask you for social security number. I repeat, they will not ask you for social security number, your bank account, or your credit card or insurance. If they ask for any of those things, hang up because they are not legitimate. If you are on Medicare, you should not be charged anything for testing or for the vaccine, but you may need to show your Medicare card when you arrive at the medical facility that's doing the test, and that's so that they know that they can bill Medicare. But you should not be asked that information in advance. Because of the uncertainty with the booster shots, it seems like the news changes every day with that. You can count on the scammers calling and offering it to you. Please check with your valid medical care providers before you get involved with any of that. And there is a Washington coronavirus hotline that is open daily. And I'm going to give you that telephone number if you've got a pencil or pen handy. And that number is 1-800-525-0127. And then you press pound. So next chart, please. In the past, there were ads and messages touting treatments, cures, access to masks and other disinfectants and things like that. Those kinds of things are still available, but they're not as prevalent now. Or we're still getting scam calls like that, but not as often as we did before. And also there used to be that they said there were mandatory tests. So they'd call people and try to frighten them into going for a test. And actually, when you went for the test, they were just fishing for your personal information. But now they've gone to a new method, and that is surveys. And a survey sounds innocuous, but the truth is they're fishing for information. So be wary of any surveys that come to you. And there has been a lot in the news about vaccine passports that would allow you to go wherever once you've been tested. The federal government is not getting involved in that. So that is not something that you should be getting involved with. So next chart, please. How to protect yourself. Number one, listen only to trusted resources about volunteers. And social media is not a trusted source. There is a lot of misinformation that is being spread on social media. Call your doctor, send an email chart, talk with your pharmacist, talk to somebody that you know has the training and education to give you a correct answer. And recognize scare tactics for what they are. And a red flag is immediacy. The scam artists want you to act fast. Don't think about it. Just do what I tell you to do. So they're going to try to trigger some emotion that gets you to do that. So if you're feeling anything, stop, take a deep breath, and probably hang up or stop the transaction that you're involved with. And do not give out personal information. And that's a very important message in any kind of dealings that you have. So now, Jack, would you like to tell us about financial scams?
Yes, we still are having trouble on our screen, so I hope everyone else does see the charts. And basically, stimulus money is a major target in any kind of endeavor like this. The government stimulus money created a new front for fraud and scams. Crooks are using past crimes as justification. They're saying there's so much fraud involved that you're going to have to give me more information so we can verify that you're legitimate. And future stimulus payments are for financial relief for businesses are still unclear at this time. Some cases of ID theft also are tied to COVID program, as Lee said earlier. And people are still waiting for unemployment benefits. Landlords and tenants are struggling very financially and are out of desperation may overshare information. And that is the key thing. Don't give out information to people you don't know and are very certain they are the people that are contacting you. It's easy to hack into their computers. And some people might be told of need to verify eligibility via email, text, or even robocall. And they want you to provide your bank account, social security number, and all other personal information. Don't fall for it. The IRS informs us they will never text or email you asking for personal information. And they're the only people you should go to get information. Now, we'll talk about the unemployment scam, small business loans, charity on following charts. And as Lee said, the imposter scam epidemic has come back. And that's where she said that one woman lost $100,000 or more.
Yeah.
So please go to the next chart temporarily and how to protect yourself. And that's basically ignore all the contacts from anyone other than the federal government. And don't share your bank account or social security number with anyone. Give your stimulus information or get your stimulus information directly from IRS at the website irs.gov. Pay careful attention to trusted sources, basically the government. Social media, and we're going to keep repeating this, social media is not a trusted source. Okay, let's go on to the charity scams. Anytime there's any disaster or tragedy, and they want to tug at your heartstrings to contribute, be careful. Patriotism, emotions, a pandemic is really the same as any other terrible thing that is happening, going on in the world today. But charity scams are really, you have to, my philosophy is if someone contacts you, find out what charity they're talking about and check it out. And the place to check it is, we'll show on the next chart. These scams want you to act quickly. They don't want you to think about it. They want to use these high pressure techniques to get you emotionally upset. And sometimes these contacts will mention well-known charities or things that sound like well-known charities. Go back to, or go to the next chart on how to protect yourself against these charity scams. Okay.
Yes, she has.
Okay. Check before you donate. The two sources that AARP likes to use is charitynavigator.org and give.org. I personally like charitynavigator.org because it will tell you how much actually goes to the charity, how much is the percent of the money that they take in, or also tell you if it's a legitimate charity, how much goes to the CEO of the company, and it'll compare it to other charities. And basically, that is my main source of checking out whether a charity is legit. And seek out known organizations to make your donations to. Be skeptical of the fundraisers, especially ones supposedly from police offices or firehouses, things like that. Most of those are not legit. So check things out thoroughly. And my philosophy is never to give to someone who calls. Ask them for information. Tell them you've already planned if you need an excuse, or just tell them you've already planned for this year. And if they want you possibly to contribute next year, send information. And if they contacted you, they should have your information. Don't give them your address. Never make donation with a cash, a gift card, or wire transfer. Wire transfers especially as a flag. Use your gut feel. That's one of your best sources. And the next topic is unemployment scams on the next.
No, I think that I come next, I believe. That is the next
yeah.
chart the stuck at home?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, stuck at home. We've all been stuck at home for the last 18 months. And as I said earlier, that means that the scam artists know where we are. So the scam artists are likely to come around to your home and either personally knock on your door. We happen to be in the neighborhood, or we're doing a job for one of your neighbors and we'd like to sell you some kind of home improvement, fill in the blank. Now, some of those might be legitimate. So it's your responsibility to check them out, and check them out with the Better Business Bureau, check them out with other neighbors, check them out with your local community to make sure they are legitimate. But do not allow anybody to come into your home to sell you those products unless you have checked them out ahead of time. If you choose to do whatever that home improvement sale is, do not ever give them all the money up front. It's reasonable if, for example, you're redoing a roof or you're redoing windows or something of that nature, and some of you may be thinking about that, or your family might be thinking about that. It's reasonable to give them a deposit up front for the materials, but never pay them the full amount until the job is complete, because that is your leverage to get them back. Once they have the money, if they are unscrupulous, they have no motivation to come back and make it right for you. The next thing is romance scams. And the very first time that Jack and I did a presentation at El Joya was about 3 years ago. And we shared the stage with the Mercer Island Police. And the police officer that was there shared with us that day that a very large percentage of the complaints were romance scams. Now, if that was the issue before the pandemic, with people at home and people lonely and people looking to try to find companionship, those numbers have just jumped tremendously. Now, with other scams that we've talked about, you make a purchase of something and it turns out to be, shoddy, or you don't get it or whatever. It's something you know about quickly in a short time frame. The romance scam is a different kind of approach, and this is something very important, and I encourage you to share this information with every relative and every friend that you know. They groom the scammers groom the target. So they will find some link that's a commonality, and it might be religion, it might be that you own a dog, it might be a sport, anything that is something of interest to you. And they find that as a link, and they use that as an avenue for conversation. And over a period of time, they build trust. And hopefully they are building a potential romance, something that will make you happy. And then suddenly the person needs money. Usually it's men who are the scammers, though there are women. So I'm going to approach it as though the scammer is a man. And he says, we've never been able to meet. And he's always, by the way, finding excuses why he can't meet you. He can't come to your town. He can't get away. There's an illness, there's whatever. But he would really like to come and meet you now, but he can't because, and there's some reason why he needs money. He can't afford the ticket, his truck broke down, whatever. And the person is now sucked into the emotional tie and says, well, I'll loan you the money. You loan him the money and you set up a new date. And by golly, there's another situation and he needs money again. Well, we're friends now. We're tied into this. So you give him more money. We have documented cases where people have given thousands of dollars to a scam artist. In one case, a woman told me she borrowed money to loan to him and then realized that it was a scam and the money was gone. And this was a woman who was in her 60s getting ready to retire. How was she going to recoup the money that she lost? So that's a very important thing. And that's why I've spent a fair amount of time on that. Another one of the stay-at-home scams is the puppy scam. A lot of people wanted to buy pets because it was they were lonely. And there were puppy mills, there were all kinds of scams, and there were some red flags. If they're offering an animal that is at a price that's way below whatever that breed should be, that should be a red flag. There probably isn't a dog, and you're going to end up losing money. The second thing is if they insist on shipping the dog to you as opposed to your picking it up and seeing it live. That's a red flag. In the emails that you get from this person, is there poor spelling or poor grammar? That's kind of a flag that they're not American born and raised. And so where are they getting the dogs from and where are they? And if they require money transfer, any demand of payment by wire should raise a flag, because once you wire money, it's gone forever. So those are red flags to keep in mind. So next chart, how do you protect yourself? And this is repetitious. Only accept help from those you trust. Screen calls and do not engage. If you engage with one of these scam artists, they check you on the list and say, aha, this is a potential live one. So don't let that happen. Don't talk to strangers on social media. And, you really need to vet anyone that you're communicating with and never send money to anyone who requests it on social media. And if you have trouble saying no, develop a script. And the script might be, sorry, I need to talk with my financial advisor before whatever it is they ask you to do. And then I would suggest that you hang up, because once you tell them you're not giving them the money, they're probably no longer interested in you as a target. So now, Jack.
Okay, while I'm thinking of it, I want to interject one thought. We're saying don't give out any of this information. I want to unfortunately tell you, we learned yesterday, and it was a presentation that included the Attorney General of this state. Your information is probably out there on the black web anyway, and they can buy it for $3 or $4. So what we were suggesting, even being as careful as you are, check your financial accounts frequently, like your credit cards, your bank accounts, everything, your IRAs, all of that. Please check it on a regular basis in case your identity has already been stolen. Don't want to scare you, but be aware. Okay, other scams with a COVID twist. And we still don't have a screen, so hopefully you're seeing, we see only the top line 3 times, but the employment scams with so many high unemployment rates that's going on. Scammers are looking to lure job seekers into other traps over the internet, through telephone calls, that sort of thing. Avoid any opportunity that sounds in any way out of normal. Now, most of these are going to be, because of the COVID, work at homes, but use your gut feel if it sounds too good. Be very, very careful. Okay.
If I would
okay,
just like
go
to
ahead.
add something here. This is also information that you need to share with family and friends, that there is no reason for a potential employer to have your social security number until they have written an offer for the job. So make sure that as your family members and friends might be looking for jobs, that they do not divulge social security numbers until there is a job offer.
Yeah, they'll need that because they're going to vet you before they're going to hire you. So they'll say it probably if they send you a letter or text or anything, they'll say we need it because we have to check you out. So it's a tough one, but check that particular company out with other people before you go any further. Okay, loans, scams, debt consolidation. With economic turndown like it is, people, so many of them are out of work, more people are looking for financial assistance. Scammers also will be hunting for those people in need. So seek financial assistance from trusted sources. And as I saw on the internet on my Fidelity account, one of the little notes in there was that some of the major companies are not so honest anymore. And I won't mention what they are. You'll check it out yourself later on. But if you do need financial assistance, be careful of what you get and what you sign. And my personal feeling is consider a reverse mortgage as a last resort if you really need money. Many of them are not so legit. There are some good ones out there, but you remember, you've got to check them out thoroughly before you do anything. Extortion or blackmail. Now, I don't know how common this is. Scammers will contact you and claim to have evidence of illicit activity by you or your spouse or one of your relatives, such as visiting adult websites. They will share with you a password that you may have used in the past and are still using. They threaten to share this information on social media unless you pay them, usually by Bitcoin or again by wiring. Know that these scammers probably do not have access to your device. They have a password. Like I said earlier, a lot of information is out on the dark web, and because they bought it, and along with thousands of others, following a data breach from some major company. To be safe, change your passwords regularly. Use a unique password for each account, especially your financial ones, and report extortion emails to the Federal Trade Commission. It's ftc.com/complaint. And I think we have a handout that probably has all of these on this.
It is.
So you may not have to write that down. Next chart, please. And these are general tips for all kinds of fraud. Don't share sensitive information with unknown people who contact you. Protect your personal financial. Do not post your COVID vaccine card on social media. Everybody wants to tell everything about themselves, and we don't. Let your voicemail or answer machine help you screen phone calls. In other words, if you don't know that the number that they're calling from, if it's not something you recognize, don't answer it. If it's important, they'll leave a voicemail or they'll leave something on your answering machine. Be suspicious of people who want money via prepaid debit cards. No legitimate organization will ask you to pay with a wire transfer or a prepaid card or any kind of card like that. Develop a refusal script for situations that might be difficult to say no. We touched on that earlier. Do not do your research. Seek reputable information from trusted sources. about trending scams, what's going on. And AARP is one of those sources you can check on, and it's free. Do not trust anything you see on social media. People hear it from someone else and they believe it to be true. They post it themselves. And use your gut feel. If it sounds too good to be true, again, like I said, it is too good. Share your story. Let everybody know what's happened so they're protected. If you're targeted or victimized by any scam, tell everyone else. Report scams, again, to federaltradecommission.gov/complaints.
Okay, thank you. I would like to go back to something that Jack said earlier in terms of the resources that we have for you. There was a program that went out statewide yesterday through AARP. And AARP has been doing this series of programs, and they are called tip-offs to rip-offs. Let me repeat that, and you can write it down if you have a pen. Tip-off to rip-off. And this is a series of programs that we've been offering in different parts of the state. As I said, yesterday's program was statewide, but there will be another program on October 6th at 10 o'clock from 10 to 11:30. And this is a program that I would strongly advise all of you to watch. It is a real eye-opener. And there is somebody on there that talks about how to deal with the robocalls and how to deal with them and all kinds of history about it. But what was really most emotional for me was there is a person, I can't think right now what he calls himself, but it is not his real name, but he is a computer expert and a computer techie. And he has learned how to actually get into the computers of scammers. He's been able to get into their phone calls and then get into their computers. And there is a video of one of his on YouTube that was one of his experiences. And you can see how ruthless the scam artists are. So I strongly recommend that you look that up, and you can go to the AARP website and find that little magnifying glass and click on that, and you can search tip-offs to rip-offs, or you can search events and then look for that, October 6th. Okay. My chart, okay, I can't see what that chart says, and it's different from what I have here.
We're ready to answer questions, actually.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Roger, would you like to take it?
Okay, in the chat box, there is one question from Mike Spayer, and he asks, what is the black web?
Oh, I meant dark web.
Okay, but explain what it is.
It actually, believe it or not, was started for good purposes many years ago by the, I believe, US Navy, but it's been hacked and it's been used now. You can't get it on your normal browser. You have to use a special browser, but it's where all the nasty people hang out and sell things to each other. They'll sell your social security number and your home address or your date of birth for $3 or $4. But it's always being tracked by the FBI, by the way. So if you want to get on it, be prepared to answer questions.
Yeah, but it's a base of information that does exist, but and was initially, as Jack said, it was initially created for governmental purposes that were legitimate, but it got hacked and it was taken over by these actually criminals, and it's universal. It's all across the world. There was a time a few years ago where we could go to Microsoft and they had a tour that they would give you. And when you walked into one of the rooms, there were walls on both sides of this corridor that had videos of with maps of the world, and you could see lights flashing where these scam calls were going all over the world,
being originated from.
where they were originating from. And because so many of the scam calls originate outside of the country, it's very difficult for Americans to stop it.
And their particular governments in many of these countries maybe even involved, we don't know. But I'm just saying they're not being prosecuted in their own countries.
Thank you so much for answering that question. Roger, do we have any others?
No, that was it. There aren't any other questions.
Okay, great. Lee, anything to add, or should we thank our audience for joining us today?
Well, I would just like to remind you that if you get a call, a telephone call, an email, a text, anything that says you got to respond right away, that should be a red flag for you. And do not click on the link. Do not click on the link. And be cautious, and we wish you well.
And also, if you have the option to bow out and, just opt out of getting future messages, don't click that either. And one thing we didn't mention that's in our normal presentation, if you hover your mouse over that particular site and look in your lower left corner, you'll see where it's really going. And if nothing appears, that's a sign that it's a bad site also.
Thank you, guys. You've given us some great tips today. Larry, would you like to say anything to wrap this up?
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to Janet, my coworker here, and because I want you to meet her as well. She's with us, but go ahead, Janet.
Sure. Gosh, thank you so much for a very, very informative presentation today. I think we all learned something new. I know I did. So to wrap it up, we will be emailing everyone an evaluation form, and we would love to hear your feedback on the presentation, as well as any future suggestions you might have for our Zoom presentations. If you have any questions whatsoever about Aljoya Mercer Island, or you'd like a tour, please call us at 206-230-0150. Again, we're Larry and Janet. Very nice to meet you today. And this concludes our presentation.
And I'd just like to say one more thing, is that before you answer the phone and listen to people, what they have to say, put in the back of your mind, what would Lee and Jack say if I push this link, or if I gave them my private information? They would tell you, hang up. They would tell you, don't do this. They would tell you,
For sure.
And that's what we want to accomplish. Keep your money, save your money, spend it wisely, save it wisely. And that's why we bring these educational seminars to everyone. And we're so happy you joined us today. Thank you, Lee and Jack and Ann and Roger and Stephanie. It's just, we have a whole team of people to serve our listeners to make this the most joyous seminars possible. So let us know in the feedback forums, like Janet said. We would love to hear from you and keep improving our quality of seminars. And thank you, AARP, who really take care of our seniors a lot, and we appreciate that. So everyone have a wonderful day, and thank you for taking this time to join us. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.